The live stream was going viral for all the wrong reasons. "Chat, this is my blind date," Tyler James snickered into his phone, angling the camera to catch the woman in the wheelchair approaching his table. "They didn't tell me she'd be rolling." Selena Ward's fingers clenched around her wheels as laughter erupted from his followers. The trendy Koreatown restaurant fell silent, diners averting their eyes as humiliation burned up her neck. "Is this a joke to you?" she whispered. He shrugged, already reading his chat. "Relax, it's just content." She turned without another word, pushing herself toward the exit, her co-worker's cruel setup finally crystal clear. They hadn't arranged a date, they'd arranged a punchline. Outside in the cool LA night, she stopped near the curb, forcing herself not to cry. City lights blurred as her vision watered. "Miss," the voice was low, controlled, carrying a subtle soul accent. A man stepped from the shadows, charcoal suit, sharp eyes, dangerous calm. His gaze locked on her face, not her chair. "I saw what happened," Jaemin Kwon said quietly. "Do you need help?" Inside the restaurant, servers had gone rigid. The manager watched from behind the host stand, recognizing the man who quietly owned half the block and unofficially controlled much more. But Selena didn't know that yet. She only knew that for the first time all night, someone was looking at her like she mattered. "Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Hey there. Please drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing you these incredible stories." Selena Ward had learned to read rooms long before she'd learned to maneuver a wheelchair. As a black woman in corporate marketing and a paraplegic after a car accident 5 years earlier, she knew how people's eyes flickered, first to her face, then to the chair, then to some middle distance where they could pretend neither existed. She also knew how quickly respect could turn into condescension, how inspiration became another word for pity, but she still believed stubbornly that she deserved soft things, a real date, a real chance, love that wasn't conditional on her being brave or overcoming anything. So when her co-workers at the prestigious Hartwell & Associates marketing agency insisted on setting her up on a fun, low-pressure blind date, she wanted to believe them. Lindsay Harper had squeezed her shoulder and said, "You deserve a night out, girl. You've been working yourself to death." Marco Diaz had added, "Trust us, he's a great guy, really funny, super down-to-earth." The whole thing felt suspiciously hyped, but Selena was tired of saying no to life. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready in her modest downtown apartment, choosing a deep emerald wrap dress that complemented her rich brown skin, gold hoops glinting against her neck, her natural curls piled high and intentional. She'd practiced her laugh in the mirror, rehearsed conversation starters, allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could see past the wheels to the woman sitting in them. The restaurant they'd chosen was trendy and bustling, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place where young professionals came to see and be seen. Han's Kitchen sat in the heart of Koreatown, its reputation built on authentic flavors and Instagram-worthy presentation. She rolled through the entrance with quiet confidence, scanning for her date. Then she saw him. Tyler James was already seated at the table they'd described, messy brown hair, deliberately tousled, loud voice carrying across the dining room as he spoke animatedly into his phone. A ring light was clipped to the table edge, his device propped against his water glass with the telltale red recording light blinking. The moment he spotted her approaching, his eyebrows shot up, not in pleasant surprise, but in barely contained amusement. Her stomach dropped like a stone. "Oh my God," he snickered, not bothering to mute his live stream. "You guys actually did it. This is perfect." Selena's hands stilled on her wheels. Around them, conversations began to quiet, as other diners noticed the spectacle unfolding. She could feel their stares like physical weight, the familiar mixture of curiosity and discomfort that followed her everywhere. Tyler angled his phone with practiced ease, making sure the stream caught her wheelchair as she approached the table. His followers' comments were already flooding the screen, laughing emojis, cruel jokes, the digital equivalent of pointing and staring. "Chat, this is my blind date," he announced, smirking directly into the camera with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "They didn't tell me she'd be—" "Don't you dare," Selena said, her voice low and warning, though her heart was already sinking. "Rolling up to dinner," he finished, dissolving into laughter that his audience eagerly echoed through the comment stream. The restaurant went painfully quiet. Heat burned up Selena's neck, but it wasn't the flattering kind that came from attraction or excitement. It was humiliation, betrayal, fury. She saw it in the way nearby diners looked away, in the way the hostess froze mid-step with menus in her hand, in the way no one, not one person, stepped in to stop what was happening. Her co-workers hadn't set her up on a date. They'd set her up. "For real," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the blood rushing in her ears. "This is what you think is funny?" Tyler glanced at his phone screen, reading the flood of comments with obvious delight. "Relax, it's just content. My followers love this stuff. You're going to be famous. Think of it as free publicity." The casual cruelty of it, the way he spoke about her like she wasn't even there, like her humiliation was just another form of entertainment, hit her like a physical blow. She thought about Lindsay's concerned expression when she'd mentioned being lonely, Marco's insistence that this guy was perfect for her, the way they'd all gathered around her desk to hear about her big date. They'd planned this, all of it. Her loneliness had been their punchline. "You know what they thought," Tyler continued, still filming. "They thought their blind date prank was funny, and honestly, they were right. This is comedy gold." Selena turned her wheelchair without another word, pushing herself back toward the door with movements that were usually smooth, but now felt jerky, uncontrolled. Her muscles were tight with shame and rage, her breathing shallow. She refused to cry in front of them, not again, not this time. Behind her, Tyler's voice carried, "Oh, come on, don't be like that. It's just a joke, you should be grateful. This is the most attention you'll ever get." She burst through the restaurant doors into the cool LA night, city lights smearing into streaks as her vision blurred despite her best efforts. The sidewalk felt uneven under her wheels, every small crack and imperfection magnified by her emotional state. She stopped near the curb, forcing herself to breathe deeply, to regain some semblance of control. "Don't cry, don't give them the satisfaction. Don't, miss." The voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, low, controlled, and carrying the faintest trace of a soul accent. It wasn't tentative or pitying, it was observant, measured, respectful. She looked up through her tears. A man stood a few feet away, half in shadow, half in the wash of neon from the restaurant sign. He wore a charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored specifically for his frame, the fabric expensive enough that even in her distressed state, she could tell it cost more than her monthly rent. His white shirt was partially unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the edge of what looked like an intricate tattoo along his collarbone. But it was his face that held her attention. Sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes, and an expression that was both gentle and absolutely furious. His posture was relaxed but coiled, like a predator pretending to nap. Most importantly, his gaze was locked on her face, not her chair. "I saw what happened," he said quietly, his voice carrying an authority that made her spine straighten instinctively. "Do you need help?" She stiffened, wiping quickly at her eyes. "I'm fine." His gaze flicked briefly toward the restaurant door, where Tyler's obnoxious laughter was still audible, then back to her. There was something dangerous in the way his jaw tightened, but the danger wasn't aimed at her. "No," he said softly, stepping closer with careful, measured movements. "You aren't, and you shouldn't have to be." Inside the restaurant, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Servers moved with sudden urgency, their casual chatter replaced by nervous whispers. The manager, Mrs. Kim, watched from behind the host stand with wide eyes, recognizing the man who quietly owned half the commercial real estate in this part of Koreatown and unofficially controlled much more. Jaemin Kwon didn't just have influence, he was influence. At 32, he'd built an empire that stretched from legitimate businesses to the shadows where real power lived. Restaurant owners paid him respect. Police looked the other way. Rival organizations gave his territory a wide berth. But Selena knew none of this. She only saw a stranger offering kindness when the rest of the world had offered cruelty. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice still shaky but curious. He paused, as if measuring how much truth to offer. "My name is Jaemin Kwon." The name meant nothing to her. To most of Koreatown it meant everything. "Let me take you home," he said, his tone making it sound less like an offer and more like a certainty. "You shouldn't be alone after that." She should have been afraid. A strange man, approaching her when she was vulnerable, offering to take her somewhere private. Every safety instinct she'd developed as a woman, especially as a disabled woman, should have been screaming warnings. Instead, something about his presence felt safe, protective, like he was genuinely angry on her behalf. "That's sweet, but I don't know you," she said carefully. He nodded, respecting her caution. "Call someone you trust," he suggested. "I'll wait with you until they arrive. I won't leave you out here like this." The idea of calling the same co-workers who had orchestrated this cruelty made bile rise in her throat. Her family was back in Oakland, hours away. Her closest friend, Maya, was pulling a double shift at Cedars Sinai. Silence stretched between them, filled with the distant hum of LA traffic and the muffled sounds of the restaurant behind them. Finally, she exhaled shakily. "I don't have anyone to call." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition perhaps, the look of someone who understood what it meant to be truly alone in a crowded city. "Then allow me," he said simply. "I have a car, a driver. You'll be safe, I promise you that." It should have scared her. Instead, it felt like the first solid offer of kindness all night. She studied him, his steady gaze, the measured distance he kept from her chair, the way he didn't look at her like a burden or a prop or an inspiration. He looked at her like a person who deserved basic human dignity. "Okay," she whispered. "You can take me home." He bowed his head slightly, as if she'd given him permission to breathe. When he moved to help her, he didn't just grab her wheelchair handles like most people did. "May I?" he asked, hands visible and open. At her nod, he guided her smoothly along the sidewalk toward a sleek black sedan that seemed to materialize from the shadows. The driver, a middle-aged Latino man with kind eyes, opened the back door without being asked. "Miguel," Jaemin said quietly, "this is Miss Ward. We're taking her home." Miguel nodded respectfully. "Of course, senor." Jaemin helped her transfer from her wheelchair to the car seat with practiced patience, never rushing her, never making her feel slow or cumbersome. His movements were efficient but gentle, and when she was settled, he folded her wheelchair with surprising care, as if handling something precious. As the car pulled away from the curb, the restaurant and Tyler's cruel laughter shrank in the distance. "You don't know me," she said quietly, staring out at the neon glow of passing storefronts. "Why are you doing this?" Jaemin leaned back against the leather seat, his voice calm, but edged with steel. "Because no one should be treated like a punchline," he replied, "and because I can do something about it." She glanced at him, brow furrowing. "You talk like you're used to being obeyed." His mouth lifted in what wasn't quite a smile. "In my world, I am." "Your world?" she echoed. He held her gaze steadily. "I run things you probably don't want to know about," he said with brutal honesty. "People call me a monster. They're not entirely wrong, but I am very clear about lines that do not get crossed. Mocking a woman like you, for views?" His eyes darkened. "That crosses several." It dawned on her then, this wasn't just some wealthy businessman in a nice suit. This was a man people feared, someone with real power, the kind that operated outside normal channels. And yet in this car, with his careful respect and genuine anger on her behalf, he felt like the safest person she'd met all week. In the days that followed, Jaemin didn't disappear like she'd expected. He sent Miguel with groceries when her fridge was nearly empty, somehow knowing she'd been too emotionally drained to shop. He had a ramp installed at Café Luna, the independent coffee shop she loved but always struggled to access. He texted, not constantly, not clingily, but enough to let her know she wasn't forgotten. "How are you feeling today? The weather's nice, you should get some sun. Miguel says you haven't been eating enough." Selena struggled with it, with needing, with accepting, with the way her heart jumped every time her phone buzzed with his name. She'd built her life around independence, around proving she didn't need anyone's help or pity, but Jaemin's attention didn't feel like either. It felt like someone had finally noticed she was drowning and thrown her a rope. The confrontation with her co-workers came a week later. She'd returned to work determined to act normal, to pretend the humiliation hadn't affected her. But the video had gone viral. Blind date fail was trending. Her face, her shock, her pain had become a meme. "It was just a joke, Selena," Lindsay said during their team meeting, her voice defensive. "Tyler's always doing crazy stuff for his channel. We thought you'd be a good sport about it." "A good sport?" Selena's voice was dangerously quiet. "You thought I'd be a good sport about being humiliated on camera?" Marco shifted uncomfortably. "Look, we didn't know he was going to be so intense about it, but you have to admit it's getting the agency some attention." "Attention?" She stared at them in disbelief. "You used my disability as marketing?" Before anyone could respond, the conference room door opened. Jaemin walked in like he owned the building, which Selena would later learn he partially did through a shell company. He wore a black suit today, perfectly tailored, his presence immediately commanding the room's attention. Behind him walked a woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and an expensive briefcase. "This is a private meeting," their manager, Dennis Palmer, blustered. "Everything is private," Jaemin said calmly, taking a seat next to Selena without invitation, "until someone decides to expose it for clicks." The woman with him, Yoonji Park, his legal strategist, placed her briefcase on the conference table and opened it with theatrical precision. Inside were legal documents, screenshots, and what looked like a very thick file. "You humiliated her publicly," Jaemin continued, his voice quiet but razor-sharp. "You filmed her without proper consent. You used her disability as comedy. That ends now." Lindsay paled. "Who exactly are you?" Selena lifted her chin, feeling stronger with him beside her. "He's the man who took me home when you thought breaking me would be funny," she said, her voice steady for the first time in days. "And I'm the woman you underestimated." Yoonji spread documents across the table. Harassment lawsuit, disability discrimination, violation of California's privacy laws. The video has been viewed 3 million times, that's 3 million instances of unauthorized use of Miss Ward's image. Dennis's face went white. "Now wait a minute." "The settlement offer is generous," Jaemin interrupted smoothly. "Full public apology, sensitivity training for all staff, policy changes regarding disabled employees, and compensation for the emotional distress you've caused." Marco found his voice. "You can't just come in here and—" "I can do whatever I want," Jaemin said, and something in his tone made the room go very quiet. "The question is whether you want to handle this professionally or whether you'd prefer I handle it my way." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Selena felt a shiver run down her spine, not of fear but of something darker, power, protection, the knowledge that someone was finally in her corner with the strength to make it matter. "We'll need time to review," Dennis started. "You have until tomorrow," Yoonji said crisply. "After that, we file suit and contact the media. I'm sure they'd love to hear about how a prestigious marketing agency bullies disabled employees for viral content." They settled within hours. Apologies tumbled out, some sincere, most not. HR scrambled to implement new policies. Settlement talks began in earnest. But the real power in that room hadn't come from Jaemin's reputation or Yoonji's legal threats. It had come from the way Selena spoke for herself. "I'm not your mascot," she'd said quietly as the meeting ended. "I'm not your inspirational story. And I am absolutely not your joke. You will treat disabled people with respect in this office, or you will answer to me." Later that evening, back in her apartment, Selena rolled out onto her small balcony. Jaemin followed, hands in his pockets, city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "You could have handled it all behind the scenes." He shrugged, leaning against the railing. "I wanted them to see what it looks like when someone stands beside you instead of above you." She turned to face him fully. "Why me, Jaemin? Really? You could have anyone." He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the soft glow of the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Do you know what I saw that night outside the restaurant?" She shook her head. "I saw a woman who held herself together, when anyone else would have broken, who protected their comfort instead of demanding her own dignity, who rolled away with her head up even though they were laughing. He stepped closer, careful not to invade her space. I realized something in that moment. What? His gaze intensified. I don't want a world that laughs at you, he said. I want a life where you never have to question whether you're valued. Her throat tightened with emotion she wasn't ready to name, but before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Then again, and again. His expression darkened as he read the messages. I have to go, he said reluctantly. There's a situation that needs my attention. What kind of situation? He hesitated, then decided on honesty. The kind where people forget their place and need to be reminded of mine. As he left, Selena couldn't shake the feeling that her quiet life was about to become much more complicated. The situation Jaemin had to handle was Tyler James. The influencer had been riding the viral wave of his cruel prank, booking podcast interviews and brand deals off the back of Selena's humiliation. But he'd made a critical error. He'd started bragging about it in the wrong bars, to the wrong people. Koreatown had rules. Respect was currency, and Tyler had spent his freely. Jaemin found him at a trendy rooftop bar in West Hollywood, surrounded by sycophants and recording another livestream. The conversation was loud, crude, and centered entirely on how that crippled girl had made him famous. She should be thanking me, Tyler was saying to his phone camera. I gave her more attention than she'll ever get again. Disabled chicks should be grateful for any... He never finished the sentence. Jaemin's hand closed around his wrist with enough pressure to make Tyler's phone clatter to the floor. The live stream cut off abruptly. We need to talk, Jaemin said quietly. The bar went silent. Tyler's friends melted away like smoke, suddenly finding urgent reasons to be elsewhere. In the span of 30 seconds, Tyler went from holding court to sitting alone with a man whose reputation preceded him like a storm front. I don't know who you think you are, Tyler started. I'm the man who's going to explain why you're going to delete every video, retract every statement, and disappear from social media for the next 6 months, Jaemin said conversationally. Unless you'd prefer a more permanent solution. Tyler's bravado crumbled. You can't threaten me, I'll call the cops. Jaemin smiled, and it was terrifying. Please do. I'd love to explain to them how you've been harassing a disabled woman for profit. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your content creation methods. By morning, Tyler's accounts were deleted. The viral video was gone. A carefully crafted apology appeared on his remaining platforms before those too went dark. Selena didn't learn about any of this until 3 days later, when Maya finally had time to visit. Girl, you need to tell me about this man, Maya said, settling into Selena's living room with a cup of coffee. Because Tyler James just vanished from the internet like he never existed. Selena looked up from her laptop. What do you mean? I mean gone, deleted, poof, and word is it wasn't voluntary. Maya studied her friend's face. What exactly does your Korean knight in shining armor do for a living? The question Selena had been avoiding crystallized into sharp focus. She'd been so grateful for Jaemin's protection, so caught up in feeling valued and cared for, that she'd deliberately not looked too closely at the source of his power. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Well, you better find out. Because men don't make other men disappear from the internet through the power of positive thinking. That evening, Selena did what she should have done weeks ago. She Googled Jaemin Kwon. The results were sparse but telling. Business licenses for restaurants and import companies, charity donations to Korean cultural centers, a few society page photos from high-end events. And between the lines, in the careful way news articles mentioned him, without quite saying anything substantial, the truth. When he arrived for their usual evening walk, she was waiting with questions. You made Tyler disappear, she said without preamble. Jaemin paused in the doorway of her apartment, reading her expression. Yes. How? Does it matter? It matters to me. She rolled closer, studying his face. What are you, Jaemin? Really? He was quiet for a long moment, then stepped inside and closed the door behind him. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of complete honesty. I run an organization that operates in the spaces between legal and illegal. We provide services that legitimate businesses can't. Protection, information, problem solving. He met her eyes steadily. People call it organized crime. I call it filling a need. The words hung between them like a bridge she could either cross or burn. You're telling me you're in the Mafia. I'm telling you I'm a man who has power and uses it to protect what matters to him. He stepped closer, his voice softening. You matter to me, Selena, more than you know. She should have been afraid, should have asked him to leave, should have recognized the danger of getting involved with someone who solved problems through intimidation and force. Instead, she found herself asking, "What happened to your family?" The question caught him off guard. What? Men don't build empires in the shadows because they're happy. What happened to make you this way? For a moment, his carefully controlled mask slipped. She saw pain there, old and deep and carefully buried. My father was a good man, he said quietly. He ran a small restaurant, followed every rule, paid every tax. When the protection rackets came, he refused to pay, said he'd rather trust the police. Jaemin's jaw tightened. They burned down his restaurant. When he tried to rebuild, they burned it again. The third time, they made sure he was inside. Selena's breath caught. Jaemin. I was 17. My mother died of grief 6 months later. I learned that being good, being legal, being right, none of that matters if you don't have power. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. So I got power. And now you use it to protect people. I use it to protect what's mine, he corrected. And you, Selena Ward, are mine to protect. The possessive declaration should have set off every alarm bell she had. Instead, it made her feel safer than she had in years. What if I don't want to be protected? She asked softly. What if I want to stand beside you instead? His expression shifted, surprise giving way to something deeper. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. I'm asking you to let me choose, to trust that I'm strong enough to handle your truth. My world is dangerous, Selena. People get hurt. Your world is also the reason Tyler James can't hurt anyone else, the reason my co-workers had to face consequences, the reason I'm not just another viral victim. She squeezed his hand. Maybe your world needs someone like me. Someone like you? Someone who believes in justice. Someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated. Someone who can help you remember that power should protect, not just punish. For the first time since she'd known him, Jaemin looked uncertain, vulnerable, like a man who'd spent so long being feared that he'd forgotten how to be loved. You could have anyone, he said, echoing her earlier words back to her. Someone safe, someone normal. I don't want safe, she said firmly. I want you, all of you, the protection and the danger and the complicated truth of who you are. He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. You're going to change everything, he murmured against her skin. Good, she said. It's time for a change. But even as she spoke the words, neither of them realized how soon that change would be tested. The test came in the form of Victor Hale. Hale ran competing operations on the east side of LA, and he'd been looking for an excuse to move into Koreatown for months. Jaemin's sudden visibility, his protection of Selena, the very public confrontation with her co-workers, had given Hale the opening he needed. Your boy's gone soft, Hale told his lieutenants over drinks in a downtown hotel bar. Chasing after some crippled girl instead of minding his business. Time to remind him what happens when you get distracted. The message came through intermediaries, as these things always did. A suggestion that Jaemin might want to reconsider his priorities. A hint that certain people found his recent activities unprofessional. Jaemin read the subtext clearly. Back off from Selena or face the consequences. He was in his office above the restaurant when Yoonji brought him the news, her expression grim. Hale's moving, she said without preamble. He's got backing from the Torino family. They think you're vulnerable. Jaemin leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Let them think that. This isn't a game, Jaemin. They're not just threatening your territory, they're threatening her specifically. Yoonji placed a photograph on his desk. It showed Selena leaving her apartment building, taken with a telephoto lens. They want you to know they can reach her any time they want. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When Jaemin spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. When was this taken? This morning. There are more. He studied the photos, his expression growing colder with each image. Selena at the coffee shop, Selena at work. Selena completely unaware that she was being watched, catalogued, targeted. They want a meeting, Yoonji continued. Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. Set it up. Jaemin's voice was ice. But first I need to talk to Selena. He found her at Café Luna, working on her laptop in the corner booth she'd claimed as her own since the ramp installation. She looked up as he approached, her smile fading when she saw his expression. What's wrong? He sat across from her, placing the photographs face down on the table. We have a problem. As he explained the situation, Hale's challenge, the threat to her safety, the impossible choice between her and his empire, Selena listened with growing understanding. So you're here to tell me it's over, she said when he finished. That protecting me isn't worth the risk. I'm here to tell you that I won't let anyone hurt you, even if it means what? Walking away, pretending we never happened. Her voice was steady, but he could see the pain in her eyes. Is that what you think I want? I think you deserve to be safe. I think I deserve to choose. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. What if there's another option? Selena, what if instead of hiding me away or walking away, you let me help? She leaned forward, her voice intense. You said your world needs someone who believes in justice, someone who can help you remember that power should protect. This is that moment, Jaemin. This isn't a philosophical discussion. These people will kill you to get to me. Then don't let them get to you through me. Let me stand with you instead of behind you. He stared at her, seeing not the vulnerable woman from that first night, but the fierce intelligence that had drawn him to her, the strength that had survived 5 years of other people's limitations and expectations. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Victor Hale made a mistake. He assumed I was your weakness. Her eyes glittered with something dangerous. What if I'm actually your strength? The meeting was set for the next evening at a warehouse in neutral territory. Jaemin arrived with his usual small entourage, Yoonji, Miguel, and 2 other trusted associates. What Hale wasn't expecting was the woman in the wheelchair who rolled in beside Jaemin like she belonged there. You brought a date to a business meeting? Hale laughed, his 3 lieutenants echoing the sound. Jesus, Kwon, you really have gone soft. Mr. Hale, Selena said before Jaemin could respond, her voice carrying clearly across the space. I'm Selena Ward. I believe you've been taking pictures of me. Hale's laughter died. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. She rolled forward slightly, unintimidated by the men who towered over her. You think I'm Jaemin's weakness. Guy's soft spot you can exploit. You're not entirely wrong, he does care about me, but you've made a fundamental error in your assessment. Yeah? What's that? You assumed caring about someone makes a person weak. In my experience, it makes them absolutely ruthless. She smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. You see, Mr. Hale, I'm not just some random woman Jaemin picked up. I'm a marketing executive with 5 years of experience in crisis management and reputation rehabilitation. And right now, you have a very serious reputation problem. She nodded to Yoonji, who placed a tablet on the table between them. The screen showed a detailed dossier, financial records, photographs, documented connections to illegal activities. Your operation depends on staying under the radar, Selena continued conversationally, flying just below the level where law enforcement takes serious interest. But what happens when someone with extensive media connections decides to shine a very bright light on your activities? Hale's face had gone pale. You're bluffing. Am I? Yoonji, would you mind showing Mr. Hale the press release we've prepared? The legal strategist swiped to a new document. It was a comprehensive exposé of Hale's organization, complete with evidence, witness statements, and a detailed breakdown of his financial network. This goes live in 48 hours, Selena said calmly. Unless, of course, you decide that threatening me was a mistake you'd like to correct. You can't. I can do whatever I want, Selena interrupted, her voice taking on an edge that reminded everyone in the room exactly whose protection she enjoyed. The question is whether you want to handle this professionally, or whether you'd prefer we handle it our way. The echo of Jaemin's words from her workplace confrontation wasn't accidental. She was speaking his language now, wielding his power alongside her own. Hale looked between them, the Korean crime boss who'd built an empire on fear and respect, and the black woman in a wheelchair who'd just outmaneuvered him with nothing but intelligence and strategic thinking. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "An apology," Selena said simply. "To me. For the surveillance. For the threats. For assuming I was something you could use against the man I love." The word hung in the air like a declaration of war, or peace. "And then you're going to redirect your expansion plans to literally anywhere else," Jaemin added, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived. "Because if you ever threaten what's mine again, there won't be enough left of your organization for the media to write about." Hale's apology was grudging, but genuine. His retreat from Koreatown was swift and permanent. And as they left the warehouse together, Selena felt the shift in how Jaemin's people looked at her, no longer as a protected civilian, but as someone who belonged in their world. "You realize what you've done?" Jaemin asked as Miguel drove them home through the neon-lit streets. "I've proven that your enemies underestimate both of us at their own peril. You've made yourself a target, a player. There's no going back from this." She turned to face him fully. "Good, I was tired of being a victim anyway." He stared at her for a long moment, then reached out to cup her face in his hands. "You're going to be the death of me, Selena Ward." "No," she said, leaning into his touch. "I'm going to be the making of you." When he kissed her, it tasted like promises and power and the kind of love that could reshape empires. 2 years later, the restaurant had become the unofficial heart of a changed Koreatown. Selena rolled through the dining room of Han's Kitchen, now co-owned by her and Jaemin, greeting regulars and checking on the evening service. The accessibility modifications had been so successful that other businesses in the area had followed suit, making the entire district more welcoming. "Mrs. Kwon," called Mrs. Park from her corner table, using the title Selena had officially claimed 6 months earlier. "The new server is doing very well," Selena smiled, watching as David, a young man with cerebral palsy, navigated the dining room with confidence. The restaurant's hiring practices had become a model for inclusive employment, something Selena had insisted on from the beginning. "He's a natural," she agreed, then made her way to the back office where Jaemin was reviewing the books. Their empire had evolved, still powerful, still commanding respect, but operating increasingly in the light. Legitimate businesses, community investment, protection that looked more like mentorship and less like intimidation. "How are we looking?" she asked, settling beside his desk. "Better than ever." He looked up from the computer, his expression soft in a way it only was for her. "The community center project is fully funded. The scholarship program has its first graduating class, and Victor Hale's old territory is now a thriving arts district. All according to plan." "Your plan," he corrected. "I just provided the muscle." She laughed. "You provided a lot more than muscle, husband." The word still sent warmth through both of them. Their wedding had been small but significant, a blend of Korean and African-American traditions, held in the restaurant surrounded by the community they'd built together. "Speaking of which," Jaemin said, closing the laptop and moving to kneel beside her chair, "I have something for you." He pulled out a small wrapped box, his expression nervous in a way that reminded her of the man who'd first offered to take her home. "Jaemin, it's not my birthday." "Open it." Inside was a key. Simple, silver, unremarkable, except for the address engraved on the tag. "It's the building next door," he explained. "I thought, if you wanted, we could expand, create a proper community center, job training, support services, a place where people like us can help people like we used to be." She stared at the key, then at him, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was offering. Not just a building, but a future, a legacy, a way to turn their love story into something that lifted up others. "We?" she asked softly. "We," he confirmed. "Partners in everything, always." She leaned down to kiss him, tasting the future on his lips, bright and challenging and full of possibility. "Then let's build something beautiful," she whispered against his mouth. Outside, Koreatown hummed with life and possibility, a community transformed by the unlikely love between a crime boss who'd learned to lead with his heart and a woman who'd refused to let the world make her small. They'd both been broken when they met. Now they were something new, something stronger than either could have been alone, something worth fighting for. Thank you for staying until the end. Korean Mafia Lovers has many more incredible stories. Hit subscribe because your support helps us continue creating these emotional journeys.